interested in how we as humans create sacredness, acknowledge divinity, profanity, the sublime, all of those things I find fascinating. So how have I, in my lens as an artist and with my hands, chosen to signify sacredness on the skin of the vessel? What does that look like? What does it feel like? What is the colours? You know, there's all layer upon layer of decision making when I'm creating that resonates with my intention of honouring sacredness. I think the impulse to create with glass stems from the fact that I play with light and darkness. You'll see quite a bit of my work sometimes is deliberately using black glass or opaque glasses in contrast with transparent, because I want to play with the way light is transmitted and also how dark contrasts with that. But in terms of a philosophical point of view, I'm always looking for the middle. I see duality in everything, so I think that everything is a blend of both sides, so I'm always trying to be in the mean or the middle of both things.
For many Māori artists, whether they're customary based or contemporary based in their practice, there's a range of ideas that they're trying to unpack or convey in a succinct way to audiences that might be new to those ideas or to that work. And sometimes that can be quite an involved process, and then sometimes it can be a very elemental one where people are responding to central ideas about land, about place, about identity. And I think Te Rongo has the ability to convey those ideas quite succinctly and sometimes without words. So, and I suppose, you know, for most artists, they're conveyed best when they aren't explicitly articulated but said through the work themselves. So I think Te Rongo has the ability to find that beautiful balance between the two.
In my opinion, Te Rongo is one of the crucial artists working at this time in Aotearoa. She has a unique worldview and has built a visual language that is uniquely her own. And her works are all imbued with storytelling, even though they seem very abstract. They have layers of history and storytelling, and future-looking too. But Te Rongo definitely has achieved amazing things working in this medium, which is just so uncommon.
In terms of the greater community within New Zealand, she has a practice which looks at glass appearing in architectural frameworks, and she has that very large scale. Her work is very visible. Whether you go to Devonport Library and see that amazing experience, or you go to an art gallery like, for instance, Auckland Art Gallery, New Sea, Urnoia. You know, you're mixing Western with Māori ideas, and I think in every single instance there is something to learn and understand and enjoy with these experiences, because she's always very profoundly embedded within her Māori world, and she has transposed those ideas through into glass, and I think that's the magic of her work.
So glass isn't a medium that has been really utilised yet by contemporary Māori artists. It's actually quite new to New Zealand. Yeah, so it is an interesting space working as an artist who specialises in glass as a female Māori artist, because I'm pretty much one of the only ones in New Zealand.
Contemporary glassmaking in New Zealand is a challenge at the moment because we're a fairly young industry, really, only having developed in kind of the 70s and 80s, really. And there's, you know, unlike other places in the world, there's very limited opportunity in terms of study. So that's why it's so exciting that an artist like Rongo coming in, not necessarily with a hot glass background, and it's good to see that shifting a little bit so that this kind of glass can be seen in a different context to just the objects. That glass can be truly an expression, a creative expression and an artistic expression.
Choosing Rongo Kirkwood for the Rakow Commission and recognizing that she's currently based in Auckland, New Zealand, I have to say I first was inspired by her work. First, it was the objects itself that drew me in. And then as I began to pull the dimensions of place and time and recognizing that she's currently working in New Zealand, that hasn't had as long of a history of independent studio practice in glass, as I began to recognize more and more of what her work is revealing, it reminded me that it's so important to bring an artist from New Zealand, let alone the only female Maori artist working in glass today, into our collection.
Yeah, I think Te Rongo's position as a glass artist, both within the New Zealand contemporary glass developmental practice, but also within contemporary Māori art, is doubly unique. And I think her position and her voice and the ideas that she's exploring as a Māori artist practicing and committed to glass practice is rare, unfortunately. It would be lovely to see more glass artists in this realm that have Māori ancestry and explore that through the work. But Te Rongo is really quite unique for that very reason and is quite rare.
What I would say is that my Māori culture innately just comes out of my work the way it comes out. It's part of me, my identity, but then also my Scottish and English heritage is also part of me. So I'm in this interesting in-between space, if you like, in terms of cultural influence. I don't think I can make sense of that myself because identity is a very complex thing, and it's something I've wondered about a lot, but I haven't been able to draw firm conclusions on my point of view.
Yeah, the concepts that Rongo brings to the work is, you know, mythology, environment, heritage, and identity. I think she's really groundbreaking in that way, or it's a real talent to bring all of those aspects together in the investigation into identity and self and where you sit in the world.
In Te Rongo's practice, and specifically this Rakow Commission, every component has deep symbolism. She's coming to her practice thinking about performance, thinking about sculpture, thinking about adornment, thinking about tradition. Every material is masterfully created, but also multi-layered in the symbolism of what it means. And it's not just fused glass. It is fused glass that is embedded with symbolism that holds a tradition of Te Ranga Kirkwood and Maori tradition for years and years and years and years. It tells the story in perpetuity, and it's a commentary on the past. It's looking at the future, and very much so telling this moment of the present.
For example, how does that intergenerational trauma colour the way you perceive the world today? So not to get too heavy on anything, but I'm interested in becoming whole as a person. And what I mean by that is that if I can own as much of those disowned parts of myself, the things that I see in other people that I don't yet see or haven't owned in myself, then I can come more to the center and be more integrated as a human being, which in turn will make me less fractured in the way that I perceive the world and more centered and present. And actually that is what love is in my book, is to be in a state of grace and presence, and it's empowering to be there. I think you're disempowered when you don't own all that you are. So the work that I'm currently making for the Rakow Commission includes a cloak or a kakahu, a vessel which is inspired by the hue form or the good form, but from a ritualistic or a sacred use. Then the third element is a performance piece in film format. So the cloak part of this work represents, in the broader sense, interconnectedness. And from a Māori worldview, that would come under the word whakapapa, which relates to genealogy, but it's more than genealogy. It relates to connectedness to all things from an existential point of view. In this triangular form of the cloak, I'm looking to emulate loosely the form of a hawk. And the reason I'm doing that is because for me it symbolizes a number of things. Firstly, it's a bird that flies super high over the landscape. The hawk represents transcending and expanding one's horizons and being able to see the big picture. So that's why that form keeps coming up in my work, is to be able to have the inner vision of a hawk, to be able to see an expanded vision of myself in the context of space and time, and at this point in time in my life. So in the context of this work, I wanted to bring in a vessel because we often use vessels as a way of making something, honouring something, or making it special, making it sacred. And with this work, I feel like using a vessel as a way into this subject is useful, because it's like a physical demonstration of a symbolic act. So I'll be working with my father on the film part of this work, and the reason I wanted to work with him is because we both have an interest in the emotional side and really looking deeply at what makes us up, if that makes sense. In this performance, I am wanting to do a really simple action between the two of us, almost like a ritual, a symbolic ritual. And that is to help us to kind of describe or move towards honouring those disowned parts of us that haven't been acknowledged, in order to feel more complete and to let go of maybe those parts of us that may be passed down through generations that are no longer useful from an emotional point of view. I've wanted to look at this theme in my work for many years, but I've not had necessarily the courage to do it. It's so deeply personal. It has to be me that comes to the table with this. And I've got to be prepared to be open-hearted about that, and because it's an internal exploration. The performance was not what I expected it to be. It was immensely intense, and I think both my father and I did not expect to feel that way. That intergenerational suffering and trauma or pain, whatever word you choose to use, is a human experience across all cultures, and it's dealt with in different ways. For my father, and within the context of the Māori culture, there's a lot of pain there. I wanted to move into a state with my father and to use the symbols of the kakahu, the cloak, and the puriho vessel in between us, which holds the breath of life, our life essence, and grounds the whole intention, if you like. And the act of moving that kakahu onto my shoulders is an acknowledgement of all of that has gone before, past, and that will be carried on into the future. So it's heavy. You know, we're looking at emotional charges on perceptions that have been laid down over generations, and we carry that epigenetically in our bodies. So I would love to transmutate and collapse as much of that emotion within my body, within my lifetime, so that I can be of more service in my life, more whole, and a more balanced, integrated human being.
Bow to the mountain, cleanse the river flow. Let your ancestors know that you're here to stay. Wash in the sun's light, casting shadows on your birthright. Tell your ancestors that you are here to stay. It's the land that governs the man. Without it, we got nothing. Our essence ingrained in the snow. Don't degrade me, I ain't no westernized Eskimo. Cause my sister's to the north of the turtle. I hear you, I feel you, I see you. Same shit happened to